Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
Why are you staring at me like that? You enormous thick head. Hello. What's the main concept? A reporter discovered Hollywood's great celebrity serving beverages in a hotel in Manhattan. She had a phony name. 20 years prior, she had been the highest paid actress in America. The authorities once requested that she alter her hairdo since it was hurting for malice in manufacturing facilities. She was called by her co-stars and declined to collaborate with her. However, the true tragedy began when she was 10. An oil explosion her father tanker, and that was only the first step of a shadow that would pursue her. Farrah Constance Francis was her birth name. Ackerman Marie, November 14, 1922 in New York's Brooklyn. However, as soon as she was born, her life was sad. Her dad, Harry Eugene Ackerman, was an oil worker at tankers and was absent for extended periods of time. Her mum, who was just in her 20s, was abandoned to bring her up by herself. The family didn't pass a lot of money, but Constance was raised without the consistent affection of a dad. Later on, she claimed to be a tomboy who preferred boxing gloves over dolls. It was more than just kiddie play. It was a barrier, a strategy, to deal with Thavoid. Then, at the age of 10, tragedy struck hard. Her dad passed away in a terrible explosion of an oil ship in Pennsylvania. It was more than just a defeat. It was final, forceful and horrifying. Her mother was suddenly a widow, at the age of 27. Lacking funds and a trauma. 1932 was the year, and the Great Depression made matters worse. Her mother remarried in a few months, Anthony Keene, a man who wants to construct a stable life of some sort. However, the injurer never recovered from her father's passing. Additionally, the new stepfather failed to make simpler. Even as a youngster, Constance endured hardships no one completely understood. Got it. Later, her mother disclosed that medical professionals determined she had schizophrenia. At the time, a diagnosis came with little assistance, only shame and misunderstanding. Her mother, desperate, signed her up for acting lessons in Hollywood. She thought the stage might. It wasn't therapy, but it did help her relax. A trap. Placing a delicate, mentally sick teen in the middle of the show's pandemoniumenters would only serve to exacerbate the family continued to move. They sought well-being, optimism, and new beginnings. All over the map. Following Anthony Kins after receiving a TB diagnosis, they relocated to New York's Veronica Lake, followed by Miami, Beverly Hills. After that, within 5 years, they resided in a minimum of 6 distinct. Every move required individuals to leave behind, making a fresh start, and feigning their family was typical. However, Constance never quite fit in anywhere. Additionally, thus she was trailed like a shadow by ruthlessness. She began to rebel as a teenager. She was kicked out of Villa Maria, which Montreal's Catholic school for girls. No reason is well known. Perhaps she broke regulations, perhaps she simply couldn't handle it no longer. Then she conjured up a tale that she attended McGill to study medicine in college and intended to become a surgeon. She held on to that even though it was untrue. It allowed her to govern a life that never made sense. Later on, she evidently regret to the president of the university. He dismissed it with a laugh. However, the lie to her showed a deeper aspect. She must use fiction to escape reality. In Ella Tedsul, currently residing in Miami, was more well known for her appearance than her grades. She participated in beauty pageants. She was even crowned Miss Florida. However, they later discovered she was not of legal age. They took away the crown from her at Washer. First taste of stardom. The scandal is over. The pattern was beginning. Achievement then collapse. In 1938, she was 16-year-old Beverly Hills resident who was enrolled at the acting school Bliss Hayden. This school was no ordinary one. It was young talent's training ground at MGM. Her mother did everything she could to turn her daughter into a celebrity. At the Constance met Gwen Horn at school and striving to be an actor. That companionship would alter her life. She once tagged by Gwen to an RKO audition studios. Constance wasn't present at all. Attempt, but she ultimately received a minor role in the film Soretti House. Later on, her scene was deleted, although it didn't. John Farrow, the director, observed he was enthralled with her over one eye. Blonde hair fell, offering she had a memorable, enigmatic look. Harry called her despite the audience heated tea. Then the change occurred. Arthur Hornblow Jr., the producer, was searching for someone to be the star. Wings were what I wanted. After viewing her screen test, he washed it right away. However, Constance Keene lacked a star-like voice. He gave her a new name, Lake Veronica. Her eyes, he claimed, were like a blue lake, serene and unclouded. The V name stayed. Also in that year, Hornblow manipulated events to free her from her RK, signed her to a Paramount contract. Images, it was a significant risk. Above always a prestigious studio, and they investing a significant amount of money and time in this fresh adolescent with the mesmerizing it was worthwhile. Wings became what I wanted, a hit, and prior to its release, thus she was dubbed a 1941 find by the press. With unexpected fame, Lake remained oddly grounded. Reporters were informed that she didn't anticipate that her success will continue. Just the older actors continued to perform for a long time. She stated, I intend to return to medical school. Most People at the time considered such to be humility. Looking back, it seemed eerily true, because a couple of months after that, the first significant scandal blew up. Alpha recording Sullivan's journey in the middle of 1941. Lake was hiding when 6 months pregnant. Nobody on the set was aware that she wore corsets. Edith Head, renowned costume designer, created loose-fitting clothing specifically for her, but it got more difficult to tell. Her co-star Joel McCrea has been having trouble during the shoot. He was requested to carry in scene after scene. Lake grumbled that she felt heavier than anticipated. Sturris yelled at, claiming that he was feeble. McCrea was bewildered and ashamed. When Head discovered the pregnancy's truth, his humiliation gave way to rage. Head declined to talk to Lake. He spoke online to her via other people. Following the filming conclave, he vowed never to collaborate with her again. Once more, and with intent, McCrea was provided the main character in I Married a Witch. As a significant part, he declined it only to do not collaborate with Lake. March. Frederick took the role instead. Later, McCrea life is too short for two. I told my friends movies starring Veronica Lake. That remark spread like wildfire throughout Hollywood. Additionally, because McCrea was regarded as one of the most pleasant, laid-back actors in theaters, it remained in place. From that point on, co-stars and directors came to look hawkishly. Around the end of 1941, the Peekaboo America had been overtaken by Appearance. Living magazine referred to it as a movie property of global impact. On November 24th, the publication dedicated 3 complete pages to the hairdo of Lakes. They determined the quantity of hairs, their thickness, and precise length. Silence nationwide were inundated with women requesting a glimpse at the lake. It was all over. Groucho Marx even made a joke to thought as I unlocked my mop closet. Veronica Lake broke up with him, but following the Pearl Harbor attack by December 1941, America had fully committed. 2 women were going to work during World War II. Together with that peekaboo hair, in fact, her husband becoming entangled in machinery, it caused mishaps and injuries. 1943, the Commission on War Manpower made contact straight to Lake. They requested that she alter her hairdo for the purpose of national security, and she did. Lake participated in a public service declaration. She gazed directly into the camera and secured her well-known hairstyle, and demonstrated the dangers of wearing it loosely around industrial machinery. She was promoted the more secure victory roll technique, and the country came next. It was the sole instance in a movie star's haircut in the past become a matter of national security. Veronica not only did Lake illuminate the screen, she essentially burned it. Just 4'11" and weighing less than 100 pounds, she was among the Hollywood's smallest stars. However, paired alongside Alan Ladd, who appeared to be barely 5'6", something unusual happened to him. In fact, height suited them. In a sector in which the majority of male leads had total war over Lake and Ladd, their co-stars looked fantastic together. There wasn't require camera trickery or apple boxes. Simple, natural chemistry. When they initially collaborated on this firearm for rental, the magic happened instantly in 1942. So quick, Paramount actually hurried them into prior to the first movie. The glass key was balanced out. The audiences adored it. Likewise, in the ensuing years they produced 7 films in total, like as 1946's The Blue Dahlia and 1948 in Saigon. Their scenes felt personal and convincing. Due to the fact that the camera didn't need to tell lies, they just fit. However, what the camera failed to capture was how much effort was required to make Lake look like a tall, deadly woman. Behind these sequences, Edith Head, the costume designer, had to use your imagination. Head was able to extend the illusion. She held Lake in elegant, uncomplicated attire with long sleeves and revealing necklines to attract attention upward and downward. Sleek silhouettes with delicate bodice embellishments applied to theme packed. Additionally, beneath each ensemble, Lake wearing high-heeled platforms and side openings that gave Lake the appearance of greater in height than she was. The lines that are vertical aren't a coincidence. Head, who was just 51 herself, was able to turn short actresses into goddesses on screen. She would previously, but with Lake, the illusion needed to be flawless. The viewers, most of them, didn't know, and they couldn't. She appeared strong on film and poised. In person, several were taken aback by observe her true diminutive size. At one as an example, Veronica Lake was among the Hollywood's highest paid women. She was earning $4,500 a week. The sort of that's more than $75,000 a week today. However, such success was short-lived. Everything began to collapse with the sick-load movie. The hour before was that movie Dawn, published in 1944. In it, Dora Brookman, a Nazi spy, icy callous role that didn't sit favorably with viewers. However, it wasn't only the persona that alienated others. She had hair for many years. Her go-to haircut was the PEEKABOO trademark. However, throughout the conflict, the government requested that she alter it to promote women's safer hairstyles, lowering at manufacturing facilities. She paid attention, and it was disliked by fans. The new style didn't work out. The movie was, too. The situation just grew worse. From there, while filming the film, a lighting cable tripped Lake. Thus she went into early labor after a tumble. Her prematurely born newborn boy didn't. Weeks later, she submitted an application for within a few months, she lost a child, divorced, and observed her movie didn't do well at the box office. The new Veronica was rejected by audiences. Lake and the studio did too. The mystery that had brought her fame was gone behind the scenes. She was drinking became unmanageable. By 1943, individualists observed on stage that she couldn't recall her lines. She arrived late. She didn't appear to be concerned. In contrast to her masculine co-stars who were frequently pardoned for misdeeds conduct, Lake wasn't. Directors as well as she was deemed unprofessional by studio heads. Some simply wouldn't cooperate with her once more. She became even more alcoholic. By 1952, it had set off a total disintegration. She got on a plane by herself. From New York to Los Angeles in what later reported by witnesses as a fit of lunacy. She was losing her sanity. Alcohol, according to doctors, was making her worsening schizophrenia. She became numb from drinking. The suffering, but it simply made things worse, more hazardous. No studio desired to put your hands on her. She landed that same year her final significant job. Following that, the scripts ceased to arrive. Next came the murmurs, then the slurs. About people in Hollywood weren't only thinking Veronica Lake. It was challenging. They made a call not in a quiet way, either. Perform according to Eddie Bracken. She was referred to as Sant. She was worthy of the title. She co-starred with Frederick March Iney, married a witch and detested her greatly. Dubbed the movie I Married, I requested to collaborate with her once more. He leggedly remarked, "Life is too short." Had the same impact on other people. Joel, the same phrase was said by McCree following Sullivan's journey. She had appeared on That caused a 6-month pregnancy without letting someone know. Preston, the director Sturgis, must have been quite enraged. Physically restrained, McCree vowed to never again collaborate with her. Eventually headed, but her reputation was of assuming control, and not in a positive way. By 1948, at the age of 26, she was still youthful by Hollywood standards, yet Paramount made the decision to let her go. Shutters transformed from a prominent construction star to a liability. The sainted two more failures, isn't it romantic? Sealed, sisters her destiny. There was no future for the studio. Alongside her, they dropped her. She attempted to make a fresh start at 20th Century Fox. However, it wasn't the same. The major responsibilities ceased. Approaching. Payrolls decreased. The spotlight went off. As someone who had previously the epitome of Hollywood glitz, it was a vicious descent. July 1943, something occurred that altered Veronica Lake's eternal existence. She was 7 months old, expecting her second kid at the Tim recording in the hour before sunrise. Once she hurried to a Groucho Marx in the morning. Radio call. She stumbled while traveling. Smashed into a lamp cable antable, then fell to the ground. That descent caused early labor. She went to Good Samaritan Hospital in a hurry and gave birth on the 8th of July. Her child, Lee William Anthony, weighed just to 14 lb back then. Infants that small hardly ever survived. She remained by his side. For 7 days. She didn't get much sleep. She hardly said anything. All she could do was hope. Catherine, as it happened, Hepburn was dying. Through the medical facility, observed her and provided peaceful solace. However, on July 15, Veronica hugged her infant at 10:10 a.m. As in her arms, he passed away. She stated it later. Was the most agonizing time of her life, and her recovery was never complete. The loss of her son demolished what remained of her union. Art was Veronica's spouse, John Deatley, the director, in 1940 when she was only 18 years old, and he was 32. However, the demands of celebrity had already drawn separating them. Their child's passing caused irreversible harm. Only a few weeks. Veronica left after a while. No struggle, no conversation, only a message stating that she was no longer able to accomplish it. Their separation back, the subject of unpleasant front page news. Charges it ended in December. The custody of their daughter was retained by Veronica. Elaine in 1946. John was married again. Veronica would never again discover steady affection. Death possessed a vicious streak. He was icy, nasty, and in charge. He obstructed her from examining scripts, even concealed his employment offers. His goal was not for her career to get better. They had 2 kids, Michael Diana in 1948 and in 1945. However, by 1952, the marriage broke down, and custody. The fight was brutal. She was used by DTH. Sadness and alcoholism against her Huon. She lost both of her kids. She would hardly ever see them again. The work of Veronica Lake's Hollywood's decline wasn't merely a gradual fade. There was a spectacular accident, and everything. Up in 1952, her house was taken by delinquent taxes to the IRS. Her film career had fallen apart. Her union was atop the cliffs. She was unable to handle it no longer. Unexpectedly, she climbed onto the private aircraft of her family and took off. Traveling alone from Los Angeles across the nation, leaving her spouse, Andre, to move to New York, leaving their kids in their wake. Later, witnesses described it as a fit of lunacy. It wasn't merely a mental take-a-break. It was the time after years of strain, untreated schizophrenia, alcoholism, and the oppressive expectations of celebrity eventually supplanted her, that the flight was not scheduled. It was risky. It was a desperate situation. However, to her, it was liberty in retrospect. She remarked, "They stated that she would return in a few months. Never came back. Sufficient was sufficient enough. Was I interested in becoming one, a genuine human or a member of the Walking Dead?" That flight was her actual demise. A career in Hollywood and the start of a protracted, agonizing exile in New York. She poured herself into TV. It weighs everything she owned. During the initial 3 months, she performed in 9 or more shows. It was fashionable and paid poorly, yet it preserved her life. Early television, the 1950s, weren't what they are today. For a former movie star will make a live TV appearance, that was viewed as a setback. However, Lake didn't have the luxury of caring. She went live. Battled schizophrenia week after weekend, drinking while attempting to relent. She appeared on the Milton Berle Show, used a mink coat as a makeshift tool, and created audience chuckles, momentarily reminding Averian why she was a star in the past. However, the pressure of live TV pushed her to the brink. Each performance was a wager. Every second could end. The days of studio contracts and carpets were past. She was now a single mom with Annam fading, holding on to whatever work she found it. Prior to everything falling separated, she made one final attempt to come back to shoot. In 1951, she participated in the low-budget Western film Stronghold. Was released in Mexico. It only cost $519,000 to generate both Spanish and English versions. It was dubbed a shambles by critics, unconvincing, wooden, and confused. Those the words were kind. To make matters worse, she and the other actors weren't compensated in full. The intended amount for Lake was $47,500. She had only been paid $1,328 by 1958. In 1962, she took legal action, but it was too late. The damage was already done. Androdito was upset that she had accepted the position later on. He acknowledged that he had been intercepting scripts for her. This last, they became bankrupt due to failing. Lake never recovered. The movie was terrible. The 8 was a bad experience, and the consequence broke whatever remained of her assurance. The 1960s saw Veronica Lake had essentially disappeared. She was no longer not so much remembered as famous. Her thoughts, already delicate, started to spiral. She thought she was being watched by the FBI. She believed someone had tapped her phone. She closed herself occasionally in inexpensive apartment stays. She declined to see anyone. According to friends, she was unrecognizable, swollen, knotted hair, and missing teeth from drinking. She had faith in plots. She was constantly afraid. Talk. According to GPT, in 1962, a tip fell on a desk of a correspondent for the New York Post. It seemed too bizarre to be real. Veronica Lake was formerly a famous. According to reports, the Hollywood star was working as a bartender as Connie Detto. The surname of her former spouse, Andre Detto, is the director. The location, the tiny Martha Washington Hotel, Midtown Manhattan, boarding house for women in the workforce. The red carpets had vanished, as well as studio spaces. The 42-year-old now was serving strangers drinks. She said she liked it while grinning. "I enjoy individuals. I enjoy conversing with them." She stated, however, the narrative was too juicy for the press to carefully handle. Lake possessed their well-known figure in the 1940s, starring with Alan Ladd hit. Then, she had most individuals believed she acutely retired. Yet this bartender, the sighting garnered national attention. Nation. She was portrayed as broken, washed up, and then forgotten. People reacted quick. Money, letters, and even checks poured in from empathetic supporters who believed she needed help. However, Veronica Lake had no interest in it. She came back. Each and every dime. She claimed that she wasn't broke. She was actually spending $190 a month in rent, of about $1,900 today. It wasn't a desperate move. That wasn't impoverished. She was simply leading a calm life. According to her own terms, she detested the way that was spun by the press. She views working as a waitress as wasn't embarrassing. It was truthful. However, some were agitated by the media frenzy. Interest, which resulted in a part in Ann Bestfoot's Broadway comeback in 1963, forward. She even disclosed the stage with Liza Minnelli when she was younger. It wasn't a complete resurgence, but it wasn't with him. She made another attempt in 1966, a Canadian low-budget movie. Kayla's snow-covered footsteps gave her another attempt at the screen. She received payment, $10,000, but the movie was really bad. It was little distributed. Few observed, fewer still recalled it. She departed. Without witnessing the final cut on the set. That she accepted a job as a Saturday that same year. WJZ-TV's night movie hostess in Baltimore, but it didn't work. She was 46. The movie industry that used to love her had moved on. By 1969, Lake had ceased seeking attention. Rather, she stated her tale. Veronica's autobiography startled everyone. She destroyed the ancient. "You could use every skill I had not yet entered your left eye. Have vision impairments. She wrote she referred to herself as a sex zombie rather than a symbol, merely someone who was used for her appearance. It wasn't a glamorous book. It was ruthlessly honest and bitter. She talked of other failed unions, her liaisons with men such as Aristotle and Howard Hughes, her drunkenness, Onassis, and the guilt of ignoring her kids. She boiled out her career to a single item. I simply used my hair. The book only gave her momentum to produce one last movie. Flesh Feast is an inexpensive horror film. Published in 1970. Her final screen was that one appearance. Although her state of health had been years of binge drinking has ruined her liver. She received a diagnosis with severe hepatitis and cirrhosis. Things were deteriorating in early 1973. She resided in the Virgin Islands of the United States when she flew to New York after becoming ill for a better life. She was then relocated to Vermont. Therapy. She ultimately arrived at the medical center of the University of Vermont in Berkeley. Many were perplexed by that move. Why Vermont? Some claimed she was there on a visit, companions. Others thought she had no connections. Not even there. Perhaps she went because of Veronica Lake, the location of her joyful childhood recollections, was close by. Perhaps she desired to pass away close to a location that once it was like home. In the medical facility she was be itself. Her kids never came to visit. Her former husbands didn't either. Local Burlington residents stopped by and visit the formerly well-known actress. Photographs that have been signed, she grinned. However, there was sorrow behind that smile, both mental and physical. She was disoriented, suspicious, and slipping quickly. She was a presence, even in a hospital bed of interest. However, nobody supported her. Side. On July 7, Veronica Lake passed away, 1973. She was 50 years old. The reason was saccade renal failure with hepatitis. No, there was one member of her family present. Days, according to reports, for someone to even identify her body. She had previously been the Hollywood's face. She was gone now. Largely forgotten and in silence.